What's good, gamers? Akalon here, and welcome back to each and every one of you. Blizzcon literally finished yesterday, although you'll probably be watching this video tomorrow because Holy literally just started editing. He's still learning, so I don't want to rush him too much. Show your love in the comment section for Holy. I'm sure he will appreciate it. But we have to talk about Blizzcon. We have to talk about everything that was announced. Or should I should call it WoWCon, because not much else was really announced. If you look at all of the other games, who cares, right? It's all WoW, and man, was it good.
The World Soul Saga, World of Warcraft, The War Within, World of Warcraft, Midnight, World of Warcraft, The Last Titan.
There was so many things announced for World of Warcraft, and I think we're all still kind of reeling about just everything. So I'm going to go through everything that was announced for World of Warcraft and just sort of give you my honest thoughts on what I think of this, you know, how hyped I am for it, and yeah, where I think this could go in the future. So right off the bat, I think the biggest thing that happened was Chris Mayton walking out on the stage. I mean, it was incredible to see Chris, and I mean, one of my friends, Rurikon, actually messaged me and said that man can sell condoms to a nun and convince her to use it, and he is not wrong. Chris Mayton is just such a showman. He really got me hyped for the expansion. But what was more important, I think, was that for the first time ever, it felt like WoW had a very clear goal of what it wanted to be. When you saw Ian, for example, he also looked a lot happier. He looked like a man that wasn't as stressed as he used to be in the past. And I think some of that is just the response that he saw from the player base after Chris Mayton announced this and how hyped people were. But I think the other part of it might just be the fact that Ian has been trying for the last, let's be honest, 6 years almost, to find that recipe, to find that success that will bring World of Warcraft back. So what happened? Well, we got the announcement for 3 new expansions. Obviously, one after the other, not going to all come at the same time. It is The War Within, really cool name, Midnight, awesome name, and then my favorite, also because of speculation, The Last Titan. Now, we can already start speculating, and believe me, we will have videos speculating about the names of these expansions, because we did do that during the live stream already. But I'm not going to talk about that just yet. I want to focus on The War Within, and I want to focus on this new meta that World of Warcraft is going in. This is something that I've been asking for since literally Legion. Argus's patch felt like it could have been an expansion. Actually, it felt like it should have been an expansion. There were so many stories that were just sort of rushed over because they had only a single patch. Then in BFA, it happened again with N'Zoth. It felt like it should have been an expansion in and of itself. Again, it was kept within a single patch because storylines in World of Warcraft historically have always been contained to a single expansion. Now, this leads to a number of problems within World of Warcraft, and one of them, as I have coined it, is headline storytelling. That's what Blizzard does best, because they simply don't have the time to tell the full story, so you just sort of get snapshots throughout time of things that's happening, and the player isn't really allowed to come along for the journey. A new system, 3 expansions in advance, so to speak, has the potential to change this. And I say it has the potential because it's all going to depend on scope. If Blizzard kept to the scope of what we will now call legacy expansions, for each of these expansions, nothing will change. We will still end up with headline storytelling. We will still end up with a lot of rushed content, because Blizzard is trying to do so much story in even shorter amount of time. Right now, my mind is sort of on 18 months. So 1.5 to close to 2 years, maybe just before the 2-year mark. So maybe like 18 months to 20 months, maybe 22 months at the most, that I think we're going to get every expansion. I don't think we're going to get yearly expansions. But if Blizzard tries to take legacy scope, storytelling, by the way, I'm not talking about gameplay here. Gameplay is a whole different thing, and we're going to get to that later. But story scope into a single one of these new expansions, it is again going to fail. But I don't think that's what they're going to do, because if we look at the War Within, and we look at the scope that was announced to us, we go into it and we find the Earthen. We also have the Erothians. Those are the only 2 storylines that we have. The Earthen, we have to unite the different Earthen clans that have since, being cut off. They have sort of fractured, and we have to unite their society because we need their help in order to set things right and in order to stop the void. And then we have the Arathians that we discover are being consistently attacked by the Nerubians, and then we discover that it's actually Xal'atath that is behind these attacks of the Nerubians. And the Nerubians in this expansion appears to be the only real threat. They appear to be the main villain, with most likely Xal'atath being very much in the background here. And since Xal'atath is the Harbinger, Midnight, the next expansion, means that that's probably when we'll really deal with Xal'atath. So this is really the intro to Midnight. And then Midnight, of course, is going to be the intro to the Last Titan. The scope that was announced now is a lot more condensed. It's a lot smaller, which means you can now actually take the player along for the journey. The player can play through the story because you've condensed the storylines enough that you're not rushed for time. So I'm super excited about that, and I'm specifically excited to learn about the Arathians and what they've been up to there, how exactly they arrived there, and just, yeah, there's a lot, but we're going to do speculations another time. I don't want to do it in this video. I just sort of wanted to mention. Now, onto the gameplay stuff and the gameplay stuff that's been announced. Super excited. Again, we just see this goal from Blizzard. They have a new sense of purpose when they're speaking. In the past, we would get, these expansion-wide systems that Blizzard was trying to design as many things into an expansion as is humanly possible because they have to give the players something to do. And what ends up happening is you end up with a bunch of systems that never really feel like it goes far enough. It always, and I've said this literally since Legion almost, the system stops just before it could actually be epic. You think of Island Expeditions. It was just short of what would have been required for it to be a really epic system and a really fun system. Visions, the same thing. Visions are actually pretty fun, but again, they stop just short of where they could have been brilliant. Torghast, another great example of a feature that stopped just before it could really be brilliant. And why? Well, they have so much that needs to be developed and designed for a single expansion that every system sort of gets only a little bit of treatment just so that it is there so players can kind of do it. And there's not enough focus on the long term. That was said multiple times throughout this BlizzCon is over. Every system that they're working on now is a system that will be evergreen. So what are the systems that we're taking with us from Dragonflight? Well, we're taking dynamic flying. Used to be dragon riding, now dynamic flying. And Ian even announced that they're doing away with Pathfinder for legacy flying. Shortly after you've reached max level and you've played through the story, you will unlock legacy flying just like that. No reputation grind or renown grind. You'll just unlock it and then you can toggle between it. You want to do dynamic flying? Go. Toggle it on and go. Or maybe you want to hover. Toggle it on and go. They're no longer going to introduce any restrictions. I think that's amazing. But we also learned that there's going to be some changes to dynamic flying. When you get dynamic flying, you just automatically get things like the vigor increases and so on and so forth. And then some of the talents will still have to be hunted. But the thing that Blizzard doesn't want is for a new player to feel like they're forced to go back to the Dragon Isles in order to collect shit so that they can actually fly and actually do all of the things that is needed. So I'm going to be interested to see if maybe there's some new dragon riding points in the new world that we can collect so that you don't even have to go back to dragon riding in order to unlock everything, or if they're just going to give everything at the end. We'll have to wait and see. But then the big new thing that was announced, I guess for me, was Delves. Now, Delves seem to be part of the open world. It is instanced, but it's not a dungeon. It's instanced insofar as if you run through the fog door, you are now in that instance. And if someone that isn't in your party runs through the fog door, they're not going to be in the same instance as you. So according to Blizzard, this is seamless. You're not going to go through a loading screen. You're just going to run through and bam, you're inside this delve. And what makes the delves really interesting, according to Ian, is that In this one, they can really play around with mechanics. In a dungeon, mechanics are sort of restricted because of Mythic Plus. There's certain things that must be there, and players will riot if it isn't. Delves don't have Mythic Plus. So at the end of the day, Blizzard can play around with things like jumping puzzles, things like normal puzzle solving, or not even having to kill bosses in order to unlock everything there. And we also learned that in order to unlock a lot of the chests, you will get the keys from world events. So this really gives outdoor players the ability to play their game while still gearing, because Delves offer gear, and also there is now a brand new row in the vault for Delves, or rather outdoor content, meaning the highest level outdoor content and Delves that you did during the week, that next week the vault will give you gear based on that. And according to Ian, the gear is going to be a similar level to final boss heroic, or plus 15 mythic. Then of course for PvPers, Blizzard had a new commitment, new battleground that's coming. But also Blizzard said that they want to do more battlegrounds more often. Ultimately, what this BlizzCon for me signaled, at least, was that Blizzard, for the first time ever, really want to take the player's experience very, very seriously. And the new direction, the 3 expansions, allows them to do exactly that. If you think about it, we're getting Delves in The War Within, and a new battleground. Midnight will most likely offer a new evergreen system, maybe something like Tower of Karazhan, Tower of Torghast, Karazhan, a new feature for casual players to engage in, because Blizzard also made consistent mention that tying power to these outdoor activities, more casual focused activities, was a really big mistake. I said this for a long time, but never mind, thank you Blizzard. Maybe we get something like the Mage Tower, only now sort of Mage Tower / Torghast in Karazhan, maybe? That brings a new evergreen system. And then in The Last Titan, another new evergreen system. And you very quickly start to notice how these evergreen systems stack up, right? Eventually you start ending up with an immense amount of evergreen systems for players to just engage in and have fun in. And if the one thing that Blizzard should probably be wary of here, and I'll do this before I log off, is don't build all of your evergreen systems in such a way that you have to consistently keep adding them to the game. Because that will be a mistake. It's going to end up with you having to do far more work than what you ultimately should be doing. Instead, if you are going to do something like the Mage Tower leveled up, merged with Torghast, giving it 150 floors of bosses and stuff like that, make it completely gear agnostic. So your gear becomes item level 0, and the gear that you get is literally just for that tower. And that means that that tower will exist forever without you ever having to add any new floors to it, unless you feel like it. So maybe 3 or 4 expansions down the road, you go, right, let's add another 50 floors to the Tower of Karazhan. Just for players that really enjoy doing it, or let's change things up and make it really fun. But don't make it so that next expansion you basically have to overhaul the whole Tower of Karazhan from the ground up, because it's an evergreen system. It has to come along with us, but your developers are now bogged down having to design all of these different evergreen systems. And then finally, what I'll end with, because I lied earlier apparently, because I completely forgot, and I just looked at my notes and I was like, oh, I forgot about one of the greatest things, warbands. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. From now on, everything that can be account-wide will be account-wide. All of your alts is now in something called a warband. You have a bank for all of your alts. Anything that you place inside of this bank is available to all of your alts. And it also appears as if no more of the buying bags and that's the tabs. You just buy tabs. So there's like literally a plus sign, and you can just keep buying tabs for your warband bank.
Well, if you want to transfer this currency to your alt, Go to a vendor and spend some to buy a different box that contains account-bound currency that you can then mail to yourself, log out, log back in, take the box out of your mailbox, and open it on your alt. Congratulations, you have moved 300 supplies.
Transmogs, of course, for the transmog people out there, you can now collect transmogs on any character, and it will just count towards the characters that can actually use that gear. So all in all, I think massive W's all around. But I'm going to get out of your hair. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Otherwise, subscribe over on Patreon. If you really like this video and you want to keep this channel free from sponsorships, $1 a month over on Patreon will do exactly that. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be kind to each other, be good to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.